My name's Claire Holloway. I'm 38 years old. I work as an eye doctor up in Green Bay, and my engagement officially hit a wall right in the middle of my own dining room. I can still see those 3 gift bags sitting there on the sideboard like nothing was wrong. It was a Sunday evening, exactly 6:14 p.m. I'm certain about the time because the clock on the stove runs 2 minutes fast, and my little girl, Nora, had already asked me a couple of times when we were finally going to cut the cake. Over at the end of the table, my 10-year-old son, Caleb, was busy trying to stack a house of cards. Nora had just turned 8 that week, and she was still sporting this silver birthday headband her friend Ava gave her. It was a little bent out of shape from all the hugs she'd been getting. My fiancé, Julian Vance, was sitting right across from me with that same composed expression he always wears. His daughter, Tessa, who's 11, was parked on the sofa lost in her phone, while Julian's mother, Beatrice, was doing that thing where she pretends to help with the dishes just so she can eavesdrop on every word. I was sitting there flipping through birthday receipts because I had that nagging feeling in my gut, the kind where your brain starts doing the math way before you're ready to say anything out loud. I stopped and looked up. "Wait a second," I said. "This venue bill says $4,180. Julian didn't even have the grace to look uncomfortable. He just took a sip of his water and told me, "That's for Tessa's party." Nora's head snapped up. "What?" she asked. I did my best to keep my voice steady and asked him, "And what was the total for Nora's?" He just shrugged his shoulders and said, "Somewhere around 300. Right then, I felt my hands go ice cold. Nora's party was just some cupcakes at the house, some cheap decorations from Target, pizza, and a movie in the yard for 3 of her friends. She had a blast, and I honestly thought we'd agreed to keep things small because we wanted to be fair to everyone. I turned the page and looked at him. "You told me both girls had the exact same budget." Julian finally looked at me, but it was that look like I was being a nuisance during a business meeting. He told me they didn't have the same budget because their circumstances weren't the same. "Explain that to me," I told him. He set his glass down real slow and said, "Tessa is used to a certain way of living." The room went dead quiet. Nora stopped moving, and Caleb let go of his cards. I looked Julian in the eye and asked, "And what exactly is my daughter used to?" Julian actually had the nerve to sigh at me. "Claire, don't make this ugly," he said. That's his favorite line, calm, reasonable, and completely heartless. Then Beatrice chimed in with that sweet church voice of hers. "Honey," she said, "blended families only work when everyone just accepts the way things are." I could see Nora watching me, looking at my face like she was trying to predict a storm. Julian leaned back and dropped the sentence that ended our relationship. He said, "Your daughter gets 300 for her birthday. Mine gets 4,000. That's just the reality of it." Nora blinked hard, trying not to cry. Caleb looked over at me and whispered, "Mom." My mouth felt like it was full of sand. My brain started tallying everything up at once, the lies, the patterns, the fact that he felt so justified he'd say it right in front of the kids. Beatrice wasn't done yet. She added, "Tessa has expectations. Nora is still young. She doesn't need all that." In one quiet motion, Nora took off her silver headband and laid it on the table. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 seconds. I didn't lose my temper or scream. I just looked at him and said, "Take your mother and get out of my house." "The engagement is over," I told him. People always ask me later if I was just being impulsive. It wasn't that at all. It was just late, and I'd been biting my tongue for 2 years. Look, I'm an ophthalmologist. I work long, precise hours where a tiny mistake actually matters. I like facts, I like numbers, and I like things to be clear. Julian sold medical gear and loved to use corporate buzzwords like synergy, which honestly should have been my first red flag. We met at a fundraiser over in Appleton. He was sharp, polished, a widower, and he was a pro at making his elitism look like simple practicality. In the beginning, it was small stuff. The first red flag was Christmas. I'd bought identical stockings for all 3 kids, same size, same candy, same gift cards. Julian just laughed and told me, "That's cute, but Tessa's real stocking is still in the car." Real. He brought in this massive, fancy velvet thing with her name on it, stuffed with AirPods, high-end skincare, and concert tickets. Caleb was the first one to notice. He looked at his own stocking, then at hers, and then at me. He didn't say a word, he just got real quiet. Later, I told Julian that couldn't happen again. He just kissed my forehead and told me I was overthinking it and that Tessa just had a different life. I heard that phrase a lot. Different lives, different standards. The next time it happened was spring break. I suggested we all go to the Wisconsin Dells, one house, simple and fun. Julian said Tessa would be bored, and then he went behind my back and booked a luxury trip to Scottsdale for just him and her. He called it quality time. My kids stayed home while I worked 3 extra shifts and scrambled for a babysitter. When Nora asked why they got to fly on a plane and we didn't, Julian just smiled and said, "Maybe next time, Peanut." There was never a next time. The third time was the worst because it showed my kids exactly where they stood. Beatrice was handing out envelopes at dinner. Tessa got a check for $2,500 for summer experiences. Caleb got a Packers hoodie. Nora got a craft kit from a clearance bin with the reduced sticker still on the box. Beatrice actually said, "Girls her age don't need money." Caleb pointed out that he was older than Tessa was when she started getting big gifts, but nobody laughed. I kept telling myself this was just a temporary adjustment period, just some weirdness that comes with blending a wealthy family. I thought once we were married, I'd have the authority to change the rules. I was dead wrong. The language they used was always the same. Be flexible. Don't cause a scene. Life isn't fair. It's funny how life isn't fair only ever seemed to apply to my kids. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I tried to fix it quietly. I'd buy extra gifts to fill the gaps. I bought Caleb a better laptop after Julian got Tessa a brand new MacBook. I paid for Nora's dance classes out of my own pocket while Beatrice took Tessa on shopping sprees in Chicago. But the kids noticed anyway. Children always know when the energy in a room shifts. Caleb started trying to be useful so he wouldn't be a burden carrying bags, clearing the table, never asking for anything. Nora just tried to fade into the background. She'd start saying things like, "Oh, I don't need much," before anyone even asked. I realized how much she was shrinking herself when we were out at a restaurant in Door County. When the dessert menu came, Tessa ordered 3 different things because she couldn't choose. Nora just put her menu down and said, "I'll just have water." She was 7 years old. I thought she'd grow out of it. She didn't. After that birthday dinner blow-up, Julian started calling me before he'd even pulled out of my driveway. I let it ring. Then Beatrice called, then Julian again, then the texts started flying in. They told me I was being emotional and that the kids misunderstood. Julian told me not to throw away a whole family over one comment. One comment. Not the years of lies or the blatant favoritism. Just one comment. The next morning, I opened up our shared digital folder and started looking at the real numbers. Tessa's party, $1,500 for the venue, $600 for balloons, $400 for a cake, $500 for a DJ, $500 for a photo booth, $300 just to style a gift table. Then I looked at Nora's, $46 for cupcakes from the grocery store, $71 for pizza, $38 for decorations. I'd borrowed the projector from a friend. I'd paid for the sleepover bags in cash. Julian had looked me in the eye and said both girls were getting $1,000 each. He didn't just play favorites with his own kid. He flat out lied about the numbers so I'd play along with his scheme. When I texted him for an explanation, he called me instead. I picked up once. I told him, "Give me a straight answer. Why did you lie and say they had the same budget?" He didn't even try to apologize. He went right on the attack. "Because I knew you'd blow up like this," he said. "That's not an answer," I shot back. "Look," he said, "Tessa's mother's family has standards. There are expectations on my side of the aisle. I can't exactly present less for her." Present. I actually wrote that word down. "And what about Nora?" I asked. There was nothing but dead air on the other end. Finally, he just said, "Nora had a nice birthday," and I hung up. By Tuesday, the second wave hit. Beatrice sent me this massive email lecturing me on social parity and telling me not to confuse the kids with artificial sameness. She even attached a spreadsheet. The sheer nerve of it almost impressed me. There was a column literally titled Appropriate Investment. Under Tessa, high-end clothes, travel, big events. Under Caleb, practical gifts. And under Nora? Age-appropriate, modest celebrations. Modest. There it was, in black and white, right in Excel. Then Julian sent a jewelry courier to my medical office. Not to ask me a question, but to pick up the engagement ring for an appraisal. I told my receptionist to send them away. That afternoon, Caleb asked me, "Are we still moving into Julian's house this summer?" I told him no. He just gave me a quick nod, said okay, and went upstairs to close his door. Nora asked the question that nearly broke me. She looked at me and asked, was I the cheap kid? I had to sit down. I pulled her onto the couch and wrapped a blanket around her. No, I told her. You were just in a room with people who think your worth is tied to a price tag. She leaned into me and whispered, I heard him, Mom. I know. I heard Grandma Beatrice say I don't need all that stuff. She started picking at a loose thread on the blanket. I just wanted to be easy to get along with. Hearing her say she was trying to be easy changed something inside me for good. I stopped arguing and started building a paper trail. I exported every email, saved every invoice, took screenshots of every text, and backed up that shared budget folder. I sent it all to my personal account and my divorce attorney. My lawyer's response was one sentence: do not marry this man. By Wednesday, I'd pulled the plug on everything: the florist, the venue, the catering, the wedding invites. By Thursday, I'd changed the security codes on my house. And by Friday, I'd booked 3 tickets to Italy for spring break. My kids had passports, I had the airline miles, and I realized that if I didn't give them a clean, happy memory right now, this whole mess was going to rot inside them. We didn't make an announcement. We just left. We flew from Green Bay to Chicago, then straight to Rome. I kept my phone on airplane mode until we were settled in a little apartment near Piazza Navona. I watched Caleb claim the pull-out bed and Nora stand by the window, whispering, Mom, it smells like pizza out there. That week wasn't some magical movie montage. It was better. It was just normal in a place we'd never been. Nora got sauce on her shirts, Caleb got obsessed with looking at church ceilings, and I drank my espresso standing up at the bar. I let the kids order whatever they wanted for dessert without looking at the price. On our last night in Florence, a stranger took a photo of us on the bridge at sunset. We were all squinting and windblown, but Caleb looked taller and Nora looked like she was glowing from the inside out. I posted it with no caption. By the time we got back to the apartment, I had 118 missed calls. Julian, Beatrice, his sister, even his mother's church friend for some reason. Even Tessa called once, though I didn't call her back because none of this was her fault. Nora saw the photo I posted and grinned. Can I comment? She asked. She typed out, best trip of my life. Pizza. 23 seconds later, Beatrice replied, not to me, but to my 8-year-old daughter. She wrote an absolute novel. It was all about family loyalty, respect, and the pain we were causing. She actually told a child that some kids get more because their parents understand how the world works, and told Nora she needed humility. Humility. To an 8-year-old. I screenshotted the whole thing and sent a group text to Julian, Beatrice, and my lawyer. Do not contact my children again. All future talk goes through me in writing. Julian called immediately, sounding furious. You're humiliating us online, he yelled. I looked over at Nora, who was eating gelato straight out of the carton with a hotel spoon because we were out of bowls. No, I said. You did that at my dining room table. I'm just living my life. He told me to delete the post. I said no. He said his mom was just trying to explain things. She wrote an essay at a child, Julian, I told him. He actually said, Nora needs to understand adult structure. That was the last thing I needed to hear. I told him the ring would be back on Monday via courier and told him to stay away from my house. He didn't listen. The day after we landed back in Wisconsin, my neighbor sent me a screenshot from her doorbell cam. There was Julian pounding on my door, with Beatrice standing next to him in her pearls, looking like the victim for the camera. I didn't even get off the couch. My lawyer sent a cease and desist by 3:40 p.m. I scrubbed Julian from everything: school forms, emergency contacts, shared accounts. Irreversible is a beautiful word when you use it right. Peace didn't show up all at once. It came in small doses. Caleb started asking for things again: extra bacon, new cleats, a second stop at a museum because he liked the creepy paintings. When Nora turned 9, she asked for homemade lasagna and a pottery class with her friends. At the end of the night, she hugged me and said, "Mom, this one felt even." I had to go hide in the pantry for a second so she wouldn't see me cry. Julian tried one last move in June. He left a gift bag on my porch with a $500 gift card for Nora and one for Tessa. Like, symmetry could fix the fact that he looked down on my kids. I mailed them both back unopened. He left a voicemail saying, "We're family." I saved it for the records and deleted it from my inbox. The truth is, they weren't upset about losing me. They were upset about losing my compliance. They lost someone who would stay quiet while they played their power games. Now, life is back to normal in Green Bay. It's early spring, and I'm back to the clinic, school runs, and soccer practice. Our life isn't luxurious, but it's calm. And believe me, calm is worth a lot more than $4,000. If there's a lesson here, it's this: the first time someone tells you your child is worth less than theirs, believe them. Don't try to negotiate, and don't teach your kids to beg for fairness. Love that ranks children isn't love at all. So, if you're in a spot where someone is ranking your worth, get out. It's not a phase, it's who they are. Don't tell yourself it'll get better after the wedding. That's the most expensive lie you'll ever tell. And remember, calm isn't the same thing as kind. Julian was always calm. He was never kind. They didn't miss me. They just missed my silence. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you next time.